Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your champ, Hunter Coy, coming to you live from a different location. In the last video, before we get to today's video, I want to let you guys know that I had discussed switching rooms in my house to give myself a bigger workout space. I did that over the week, and it was quite the process. My fiance started it for me by moving everything in here last Monday, I believe. And then over the other 5 days of the week, I've been working in and out of here, trying to get it to almost perfection. I am proud to say that for what I can do, it is done. But I will save the improvements for when it actually is completed in another workout video that I'm actually planning as we speak. It'll be posted the first week of February. And for those of you who follow me on Facebook, details will be posted about that. Or maybe I'll just do another video in the lead up to that video on the other social media sites and post it as part of the podcast. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome you all to episode 3 of the Hunting the Fish podcast. And this one is going to be a transition from the last one. The last one that I did was on weightlifting. And this one is going to be the other W passion in my life. It's going to be wrestling. At the end of the video, I will give you guys a quick glimpse around the room at some of the stuff that I have been doing over the last 7 days. But for the purpose of this podcast, I will keep it not short because unfortunately, aside from my intro video, none of my videos are short. I just realized my glasses are crooked. Not sure how that happened, but I will keep it, strictly wrestling. As I just stated, this is a transition from the weightlifting, and the reason why that I say, after you guys fall on the floor, the reason why I say that this is a transition from the wrestling video is because it was because of wrestling that I decided to get into weightlifting. But before we get into that, I want to take you all the way back to the beginning and tell you where my wrestling journey started. So, I have been a fan of wrestling since I was 7 years old. All the way back, well, actually less than 7. I think it was about 5. So all the way back in 1997. And obviously due to the improvements of a certain network that we will get to later on, obviously I have broadened my knowledge of wrestling to reach as far back as the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to present day. Now, most of this video, I will be talking about my main love, the WWE. But over the years, I have ventured into other promotions. Back in the original days, I ventured to ECW. In its early days, I ventured to TNA. I briefly dabbled into the old school NWA. And through my exhausting amounts of never-ending research, I've dipped into other territories as well. World Class Championship Wrestling, AWA Championship Wrestling from Florida, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and all those promotions. Because when you think about it and you talk about wrestling, you can't just talk about what's relevant now without talking about what was relevant then. Because in life, you have to start at the beginning. And if it wasn't for all of those older promotions from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, there wouldn't be promotions like WWE and AEW and TNA. Because it was because of the older promotions from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on and so forth that we have the three major ones that we have now. I also want to mention, there was also Ring of Honor. And the ironic part about everything is if you look at the three major promotions, WWE, AEW, and TNA, which are known as the Big Three, in that order, you'll see that there is a lot of guys who have either been in an older promotion or have come from those promotions to go through the ranks into a different promotion. One of the best examples that I can give you, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, the 16-time world champion, started his career in the 1970s, all the way down in, I believe it was AWA, that he started his career. From there, he moved to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then he moved to Jim Crockett Promotions, which soon became WCW. And then he had spells in between with the WWE, back to WCW, and then back to WWE, where he spent the majority of his career. After leaving WWE in 2009, he actually went to TNA, continued his career there, came back to WWE for a short spell, and then left WWE again. And I think as of right now, he is trying to finish his career in AEW. Another notable name that came through the ranks throughout the years of his life, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan started down in AWA and shortly after came to WWE, where he spent 10 years, give or take. Left WWE over some financial troubles and a contract dispute with Vince McMahon, and ended up going to WCW, revitalizing his career. Came back to WWE in 2002, stayed there till 2009, left again, went to TNA, came back to WWE, had a short spell there, left again, and then as of right now, he is still signed under a Legends contract to WWE. Couple honorable mentions that I want to give out. The Undertaker, my favorite wrestler of all time. The Undertaker actually started his career all the way back in the 1980s. And he started it down in WCW as Mean Mark Callis. And they told him he was never going to be a main event star because of how he looked. And he was never going to be anybody that was going to make money. Well, fast forward to November 18th of 1989. He was signed to WWE, where he has spent the last 35 years. Wow. No, I'm sorry. 1990. Yeah, the last 35 years. He's been in WWE the last 34 years. I don't know. My brain doesn't work anymore. It's late. He's been a very long time in WWE. He's actually still under contract to them. But, throughout the years, and it's very ironic how these things work. Because all of these promotions that you had back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, none of them are around anymore. And earlier I mentioned a certain network. For those of you who are wrestling fans, obviously you know where I'm going with this. If you go on the WWE network, you can actually pull up old footage of some of these territories. True story. And that's because as much controversy as he has created over his 50-some years of being in the sports entertainment business, Vince McMahon decided that he wanted to go mainstream. And when he did, in 1964. Wow, it's already been 60 years. 1964, Vince McMahon decided that he wanted to go mainstream. And little by little, Vince McMahon went through and basically bought out all the other territories. He started with the most regional ones, and then eventually all the rest of them just kind of fell to the wayside. Now, as asinine as that sounds, obviously it worked out for Vince McMahon because he became a multi-billionaire. Now, it's not to say that Vince McMahon went to the door of every promotion and said, "We're buying you out." No. It actually goes a lot deeper than that. Because what had happened was, once WCW / Jim Crockett Promotions, and WWE, then known as the WWF, started gaining traction, the remaining promotions found it harder to compete with the big two. So promotions like the AWA, WCCW, NWA, and eventually WCW basically crumbled under their own greed, because they saw each of the individual heads of the companies saw the money that Vince McMahon was bringing in with his talent and with his with his revenue and his ideas, we'll say. And he basically said, I'm the big guy here, and either you get with the times or you fall to the wayside. Now, most notably, one of the last remaining territories that also proved to be the most resilient to Vince McMahon was the American Wrestling Association, or the AWA. And it was owned by the Gagnes. Vern was the chairman and was also one of the main wrestlers. And eventually his son took over the business. His son Greg was also a wrestler. Both were amateur wrestlers in Minnesota. And the elder Gagne actually held his promotion's championship, I believe, 5 times, while the younger Gagne held it twice. Now, the reason that I say that the Gagnes were so resilient is because Vern Gagne, once Vince McMahon started growing his promotion, did not want to leave the wrestling business. So initially, Vern Gagne refused to give up his territory. And at the time, he had a wealth of talent. Many memorable names. Vader, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Curt Hennig, Nick Bockwinkel, Cowboy Bill Watts, obviously his son Greg, Crusher Jerry Blackwell, Baron von Raschke, and the list goes on. As the WWF started gaining traction, the difference between all the other promotions, or should I say the similarities to all the other old school promotions and the AWA, is not that Vince McMahon was coming down to take their talent, but the talent was realizing that there was better opportunities and initially jumped ship. Now, the reason that I say that Vern Gagne wasn't very bothered by this is because, like I said, he had a wealth of talent, and for every guy that left, there was other guys that he could push. By the end of the 1980s, Verne Gagne didn't really have that much talent left because everybody had, in some way, shape, or form, jumped ship from the AWA and decided to go to either WCW or the WWF. And Verne Gagne, as reluctant as he was, decided to contact Vince McMahon and tell him that he was willing to sell and to name his price. So Verne Gagne, I'm not sure what his price was, but Vince McMahon basically gave him a price, and WWE now owns the AWA. And that's basically what ended up happening with all the other promotions that, kind of fell to the wayside. They all ended up as a part of WWE. So with that being said, we're actually going to do something different. I'm going to come down off of my bench, and we're actually going to watch some TV. Not really. You'll see what I'm doing in a sec. So, we're going to go to, hold on, let me look up here, Peacock. Now, real quick, I want to tell you guys a little story. Back in 2012, WWE released a thing, or should I say not a thing, but a channel called the WWE Network. And obviously, wrestling fans all over the world were extremely excited for it, because there had never been a full-fledged wrestling network. Granted, there was, but just like any other network, you pretty much had to pay for it. It was called Classics on Demand, and it was basically a pay-per-view service that, just like any other, you got a hold of your cable provider once cable became a thing, and you signed up for it. Not sure how much it was a month because I didn't have it. Probably a good thing. It featured all of the old school wrestling programs, Legends with Wrestling, past episodes of whatever show was out there at the time, and also, it featured segments and everything. But when they came out with the WWE Network in 2012, it was all the rage. Everybody jumped to it. I think when it first came out, it attracted 7.7 million subscribers within, I think, the first month or two. And it just took off like you wouldn't believe. Unfortunately, there was a holdback on the launching of the WWE Network, and it didn't end up releasing until 2014. So it was released just before WrestleMania 30, and by that time, it had gained almost 10 million subscribers. Unfortunately, Just like every great thing, all good things must come to an end. However, the fate of the WWE Network was not doomed. Through a deal, the streaming service Peacock, WWE decided to integrate the WWE Network into Peacock. And now you have everything. Everything WWE within a streaming service. Now what I was talking about earlier, this is basically, this is the WWE Network on Peacock. And if you scroll through, we'll take a look at this really quick. You got your premium live events, every single pay-per-view. You have certain specials that you can look at. I think this one is titled From the Gridiron to the Ring, which showcases former football players. I don't know why I almost said flayers, but players dipping their toes into the waters of the WWE. And then you got all things WWE. You have Raw, SmackDown, NXT, WCW, WWE Originals, which are basically talk shows. You got Broken Skull Sessions, Best of WWE, Table for Three. You can get in-depth looks at superstars, gives you stats, where are they now, stuff like that. You got in-ring action, which I think that's pretty cool. It says, step inside the squared circle with bouts from 6 decades, 60 years. It's a long time. Then you got ECW. Real quick, I want guys. Back in 2006. Actually, never mind. We'll save that for a little bit later. There's a couple stories that I want to tell you guys, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then if you scroll over one more time, you have the territories, which is what I was telling you guys about, was basically, WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling, the AWA, Mid-South Wrestling, all those old school promotions that are basically a part of the WWE now. And the funny thing about it is once WWE started buying all of these promotions and came up with the WWE Network, they launched what was called the WWE Library. And it seems like the WWE Library continues to grow even to this day. Adding new programming, releasing old programming, from the territories and the older promotions. And it's amazing because it just keeps growing. You keep scrolling down, and obviously you can see that, you can actually go through. Now, I know I told you it's got all the premium live events, but, it's obviously, based on real time. But right now it's got every Royal Rumble ever, which it literally has every Royal Rumble ever, from the first one in 1998 all the way to the most recent one last year. Because it is WrestleMania season, the road to WrestleMania, as they call it, starts at the Royal Rumble. And they have, all kinds of segments where you can check out, different things. WrestleMania, you can check out all 39 WrestleManias from the very first one in 1985 all the way to the most recent last year. They have a program called WrestleMania Rewind, where you can go back and look at classic matches from past WrestleManias. They have WWE. They have a WWE 24 segment on WrestleMania 38. They have the best of WWE, where they highlight best of WrestleMania, best of like different WrestleManias. They have a segment called Recently Added, where you can watch the most recent uploaded episodes of different things. Friday Night SmackDown, SmackDown Lowdown, WWE Main Event, NXT Level Up, This Week in WWE, Monday Night Raw, NXT, and it just keeps going. Obviously, they don't have the most recent ones. I think they're on... What are they on? I think they're on a week... Well, this is December 8th. So I think they're on like a 2-week delay. So they upload a new episode every 2 weeks. Yeah. So... you can check those out if you're like me and you don't have cable. You can always go back and watch, if you've missed an episode of Friday Night SmackDown or Monday Night Raw or NXT or something like that, you can always go back and watch it. Me personally, if I can watch an episode of Raw or SmackDown, I will watch it. If not, I don't lose sleep over it. And I pretty much, just wait till the following pay-per-view and then catch up on, whatever happened. Or I just go through and look at the results. Or I just wait till some news breaks on something and, find out, whatever happened on that week's show. You keep scrolling down. You got rivalries from start to finish. This is actually something that I have dipped into very, very recently. They basically, I will actually show you here in a second. When WWE released their home video collection, which we also get to in a second, they actually released one video of WWE greatest rivalries. They also released a video of the top 25 rivalries in wrestling history. This right here basically chronicles some of the greatest rivalries in WWE and wrestling history. You have Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, CM Punk and John Cena, Stone Cold and The Rock, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, CM Punk and Paul Heyman, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, Batista and Triple H, Randy Orton and John Cena, Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, and the list goes on. You have a ton, which I'm sure there's plenty more. But, I've watched a couple of these, and basically what it is it shows you, I think it highlights, some of their matches, and, basically, tells how the story started, whether or not it finished, and what was the outcome. Scrolling down, we have featured series. Obviously, we have Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the Monday Night Wars. We have a show called WWE Evil, which is actually a new thing that they debuted last year, where they take a journey into the depths of evil and a psychological expose of WWE's most diabolical villains. I watched a couple episodes and was very fascinated because, being a WWE fan as it is, I learned a lot more than I already did. WWE Superstars it was WWE's flagship show from the early 1990s. There was 6 seasons of it, and it basically set the stage for what is now known as Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and Main Event. And speaking of Main Event, they also have 12 seasons of WWE Main Event. Now, I personally am not a fan of WWE Main Event because even though it is called WWE Main Event, it is only featured by the superstars who are not good enough to be Main Event, but are still trying to get TV time, like Apollo Crews and Akira Tozawa. NXT Level Up is basically the same thing. These are the superstars that are signed to the NXT roster who, again, are not good enough to be on NXT itself, but are still looking for TV time. But they're basically the rookies of the underground, as they call it. Scrolling over, you have WWE Tough Enough. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I like Tough Enough because most of the guys and girls that came through this competition have literally gone through the ranks of, they've literally rose through the ranks. WWE Tough Enough was actually a competition series introduced in the early 2000s, and it featured a ton of wannabe wrestlers competing for a WWE contract. Some of the most notable names to come out of WWE Tough Enough, you got Mandy Rose, you got Patrick Clark, aka the Velveteen Dream, you got Sonya Deville, you got The Miz, Ryback, Daniel Puder. There's a couple other notable names, John Morrison, Nydia, Maven, the list goes on. Believe it or not everybody that came out of Tough Enough actually went on to be WWE superstars, but, they were still pretty impactful with, what they did. Scrolling over more, you got Miz and Mrs., which is the Miz's TV show, unscripted, which is pretty cool, which actually features The Miz and Maurice in their home life outside of WWE. And I've watched a couple episodes, never been a fan of The Miz, but, I like watching TV shows as much as I do wrestling as a whole. And, it's actually quite fascinating. You have a older promotion known as NXT UK. This promotion was actually disbanded this last year due to the fact that a new promotion is supposed to be debuting called NXT Europe. And NXT UK, once it got started, basically did the same thing that NXT did, except with wrestlers from the United Kingdom, Europe, and stuff like that. You have very, very talented wrestlers. Miko Satomura, Noam Dar, Ilya Dragunov, Blair Davenport, Tyler Bate, Trent Seven, Pete Dunne, Gunther, and the list goes on, that came from NXT UK, and most of them have now made their place on either NXT, Raw, or SmackDown. And just like the other promotions, well, I shouldn't say promotions, the other brands, we should call it, NXT UK featured a world champion, and they also featured tag team champions, and I believe there was also an NXT UK women's champion towards the end of the run. But, you know, it was actually, I didn't really watch a lot of the episodes, but obviously some of the guys that were on the roster, like I said, made it to NXT, Raw, and SmackDown. So, eventually it'd be nice to go back and see where they all came from. This last featured series is WWE Old School. Classic wrestling matches from years past. Now, I will give you information on WWE Old School. I am surprised, as much of a wrestling fan as I am, that there is a thing on here called WWE Old School, because WWE Old School is, as far as I remember, it is a special episode of either Raw or SmackDown featuring legends from the past. Now, I'm not particularly sure what this WWE Old School has, because I haven't really heard of it up until now. Apparently they are missing some seasons, which I find really weird, because it says there's 18 seasons, but they're missing season 1 and 3. But they have season 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way to all the way to 23. They're missing season 18, 21, and 22. Okay, maybe they just pick and chose what what episodes they actually wanted to put on here. Each episode, it looks like, is about 2 hours long. Some of them are actually a little bit longer, which is, some of them are a little bit less. But, you know, if I ever feel like watching some old school, see what I did there, WWE, would be the perfect place to go. I mean, these are all older bouts. The first season 2 has one episode on here from June 30th, 1973. And it was Pedro Morales versus George the Animal Steel for the WWE title, and Gorilla Monsoon versus Lou Albano. Probably going to have to take some time to watch this at some point, even though I'm not really a fan of the older WWE programming. Would be nice to, I mean, obviously now that we're in 2024, me being as good of a wrestling fan as I am, I know how 99.9% of these matches go, being as I know who wins them or who loses them. But it'd still be nice to, to watch them. Give myself a little bit of old school. What else do we got here? See if we can go up here. We got some WWE originals. We got Best of WWE, WWE This Is Awesome. This one right here, WWE This Is Awesome. I will tell you that I love watching it because it's basically a countdown of certain moments in WWE history. And if you go to it and look under the episodes, that is new. They have a new episode called Most Awesome Wrestling Toys. Gonna have to watch that at some point. But if you look up here, it basically tells you most awesome wrestling games, most awesome debuts, most awesome WWE championships, most awesome weddings. Like, it's basically a list, and they usually range from, 30 some to 40 plus minutes. And they basically go over certain topics, and it's just a good show. I am proud to say that I think I've watched every single episode, just because, it's nice to go back in history and, look at stuff that basically made my childhood. You got the Broken Skull Sessions, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin sits down with former pro wrestlers, discuss their careers in and out of the ring. I will be perfectly honest, I have not watched very many episodes of this. I am not saying that I'm not a fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's just I am more of a wrestling fan. I'm not too much of a fan of the talking aspect of WWE. However, being as much of a fan as I am, I do like, the Broken Skull Sessions is kind of like a podcast, just like mine is. But it basically is also a history show for WWE fans. Also, we have Table for Three. Not really a fan of that either because of the same reason. It's more of a talk show with 3 WWE wrestlers, past, present, and future. And they don't wrestle. They just talk over like dinner or something, or drinks or something like that. Another show I probably wouldn't really watch, but I have watched several episodes of The Ultimate Show. Not sure what that is, but it says WWE hosts assembled the Ultimate Dream matches featuring WWE legends and modern day superstars. Probably something I would check out in the future. Maybe, I don't know. You got WWE Timeline. Stories and rivalries are visited. I have actually watched a couple episodes of this. Really good. Really, really good. And then, of course, you got WWE Untold, WWE 24, WWE Icons, Ruthless Aggression, Season 1 and 2, WWE Rivalries, WWE Chronicle, This Week in WWE, WWE Top 10, Icons Revisited, and then you have pretty much a couple documentaries. You got Talking Smack, Raw Talk, The Bump, stuff like that. And speaking of documentaries, now this is where we're going to cross away from this for a moment. WWE very, very, very recently. Now, earlier in the show, I told you that WWE had launched a WWE home video line. And I am very proud to say that, being a huge WWE fan, I own a ton of WWE DVDs. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen them very briefly, but there is 2 rows here. There is 3 rows here. There is that shelf there. And there is that shelf up there. Those other DVDs are actually other DVDs and videos that are not WWE, but I figured put them all together and, you know, just, you know, let them slide as DVDs. But very recently, I learned that WWE, after 30 years, yes, WWE has been making home videos for 30 years. God, I feel old. They decided to end their WWE home video line, and it makes me very sad because I would constantly go out and buy WWE DVDs because of the fact that, depending on my mood, if I'm not watching something on the WWE network, I take my PS that I got sitting here, and I take a WWE DVD, and depending on how long my workout is, I just watch an old WWE video from anywhere from the 1970s. I think I have. Well, yeah, I have DVDs from every era. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. I have everything. Not so much of the 2020s because of the fact that they were starting to dwindle down their WWE home video line after like 2019. But there is actually a couple, very, very few. There is a couple DVDs in here that were released. I don't think I have any that were released in the 2020s, but there was a few out there still that were released in the 2020s. Obviously, we had Uncle COVID around, and you couldn't really go out and buy them, so they were very, very short on it. There actually is one DVD that I'm aware of that was released in 2020, and as soon as I get my hands on it, it will be added to this collection. But the purpose of me telling you guys is because if I ever, which I don't think will happen anytime soon, decide to get rid of my DVDs, there actually is, believe it or not, I have some of these on physical DVDs. WWE has a documentary line where you can actually go through and watch the first, I think like 2 or 3 hours, depending on what it is, of a wrestling DVD. Now, as I stated, most of these I actually do have on physical copy. The True Story of WrestleMania, The Rise and Fall of WCW, NWO, The Revolution, I'm pretty sure I have that. I do have that. Living on a Razor's Edge, the Scott Hall story, have that one. Paul Heyman, I have that. John Cena Experience, I have that one. The Monday Night War, WCW versus WWE, pretty sure. Where is that one? I don't have that. I don't have that one. How do I not have that one? I don't have that one. Okay. The Monday Night War, they actually made 2 volumes of that one. But this one is actually a series, which actually I recently started watching the first episode. They have WWE 365, where they chronicle the triumphs and struggles of a year in the life of a WWE superstar. I have watched several episodes of that, and I was very, very impressed. The Spectacular Legacy of the AWA. I actually have that one, and I have watched it more than once because it is a piece of history. They have Rey Mysterio, Life of a Masked Man. Actually do have that one over there somewhere. Where is Rey? Probably in the back somewhere. Brothers of Destruction, I have that one. Future WWE, the FCW story. I have actually watched that one more than once. The Day of, which is another docu-series. Brock Lesnar, Here Comes the Pain. Obviously, I have that one. Andre the Giant. I'm pretty sure I have that one somewhere. WWE Icons. We already talked about that. The Randy Savage story, Macho Man. I have that one. Yep. And Finn Balor, The Demon Revealed. That one is actually a very short one, but I actually do have 2 Finn Balor DVDs, neither of which I have watched, because truth be told, not very particular on Finn Balor, but I applaud him for all of his success and his everything he's done in the wrestling world. And then if you keep going through, there's literally just so much in this, there's so much. When they released the WWE Network, let me try that again. When they announced the WWE Network as coming out in 2012, they said that there was more than 1,000 hours. You heard that right. 1,000 hours worth of WWE programming going into it, added every single month. So as of right now, I think they are up to at least 3,000 hours of WWE programming. And the great thing that I like about them partnering with Peacock to do this is Peacock is a very cheap streaming service. $7.99 or $6.99 a month. I personally do not watch Peacock for anything but wrestling, because it's pretty much, aside from my wrestling DVDs, it's the only place that I can watch things like that. I am currently, I'm gonna go to the homepage and you guys what I've been watching recently. Peacock also has certain football games. They have their own originals that are released through the TV. TV shows and stuff like that. But if you go down here, you can see my continue watching. Obviously, I share my Peacock with a couple people, just people that I trust to let watch it and watch whatever they want. I am currently in the middle of watching WWE NXT. We are up to season 5, episode 33. That's normally what I watch when I'm doing my workouts at home, when I get the chance to do that. And that is actually what I will be watching tomorrow when I do my workout tomorrow night. I also watch some of the documentaries. Like I said, you can actually find WWE DVDs on here where you can actually watch, I think. So the way the DVDs are set up is they come in 1, 2, 3 or more discs of, that particular subject. And with the documentaries that are on the WWE Network, you can usually watch the first disc on the network. And then, they try to sum it up a little bit. I also started watching the annual NXT pay-per-view series called NXT TakeOver. But then I realized I wanted to finish watching NXT first and then get into NXT TakeOver. So I actually started like 3 minutes of it and then was like, wait, hold up, we'll come back to it. This is the one that I told you I was watching before, the Monday Night War, season 1, episode 1. I'm pretty sure I'm done with it. And it's also something that I watch in when I'm doing my workouts. Because, like I said, wrestling for me is a big part of my life. People can say what they want about it, whether it's the F word or, they can jostle it for being sweaty guys and girls grabbing at each other, but it is because of wrestling that I am where I'm at today with, like I said, with my workouts and pretty much with my life. Because growing up, I was that kid who said that I wanted to be a WWE superstar. And after I had those 4 knee surgeries, I was basically told I was never going to be medically cleared to compete in the ring. So I basically decided I was going to take a back seat and just be a WWE fan, just like everybody else. So in closing, I told you guys that I wanted to show you what I have been working on, and I'm sorry for giving you brief glimpses throughout the video. But basically what I did, I actually put the finishing touches on it yesterday, but I found a couple of my old WWE calendars from 2021 and 2022, and I decided to hang them up in the room so that this room is pretty much, aside from my weights, is nothing but WWE and workout equipment. So yeah, I basically, like I said, I've been doing this stuff over the last 5 days, and this is pretty much the finished product. I can give you guys a closer look at all my wrestling DVDs. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but I have my wrestling DVDs in alphabetical order. Trust and believe, when it comes to organizing them, it takes a couple hours because I have so many. The last time I counted, I'm pretty sure I had 212 wrestling DVDs. Like I said, they are from A to Z. And right here you see the last one, the only Z DVD ever released on Zack Ryder. It is a Superstar collection. That is why it's last. And then after that, I have my very few I call them non-wrestling wrestling DVDs. We have John Cena in the Marine, Big Show in the movie Knucklehead, the WWE Power Series Triple H DVD, and of course The Rock in the Gridiron Gang. Now, over the years, I have owned other non-wrestling wrestling DVDs, but unfortunately I did get rid of them. I had The Longest Yard. I had I think I had a couple others, but I can't remember. But they would have gone great with this collection just because, they're still wrestling related. And like I said, they are a part of my liking for wrestling. Now, real quick, I just noticed I would like to point out to you guys. I talked about diving very briefly back in its original run. TNA Wrestling, total nonstop action. And for those of you who are wrestling fans, some of these names may seem familiar to you. Like I explained, wrestling over the years has had many people go in and out of different territories and promotions. And some of these names, like I said, may seem very familiar because AJ Styles, currently in WWE, Jeff Jarrett, WWE Hall of Famer, and also the founder with his dad of TNA, Terry Funk, WWE Hall of Famer, Raven, former ECW champion, Jeff Hardy, his name speaks for itself, Jerry Lynn, former ECW world champion. Yeah, it's just, and even if you look on the back here, you see a ton of names that may or may not seem familiar. Sabu, Ken Shamrock, I almost said Triple X. Shane Douglas, Lex Luger. Lex Luger was in TNA. I didn't know that. CM Punk, Abyss, and then list goes on. Like I said, depending on what the wrestler themselves is in the mood for, determines where they want to go. So, wrestling is a huge part of my life. If it's not evidenced by my posters, my DVDs, and the 5 books that I have, the 37 magazines that I have, and the 4 WWE encyclopedias, not evident by all of that I am a WWE fan, well, I don't know what to tell you. So with that being said, I have spent enough time talking about wrestling, and hopefully next Sunday, I can transition to a different subject. As I said, this is only my 3rd video, and I'm still trying to come up with ideas, to keep the podcast going and not make it so boring. But, you just got to stick around and see. So, I will see you on the next trip to the pond.